Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. Very excited for this episode. We're talking to the founder and president of BusinessWhitt. And what he does is he helps business owners and work at home leaders to move from chaos to clarity by designing businesses that don't depend on them for every decision. Wouldn't that be great? We're talking to John Whitt. Hey, John, you ready to rock?
I am. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. So we always start off on a good note. So tell me a story of success that we can all be inspired by.
So real success for me, I've been doing this coaching business for 16 years. And so some of my best successes are being able to take somebody from, a business that is just consuming them
Mm.
to them being able to triple their revenues and move to the East Coast, semi-retire, and basically participate in the business when they chose, as opposed to having to be there all the time. And ultimately, that sets the stage for what I really want to happen with everybody.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. And isn't that interesting that we often get into a business because we want some sort of freedom, right? And then does that happen all the time? I'm not sure, right? We do get some flexibility, right?
You get some time flexibility pretty quick, right?
Mhm.
So one of the reasons why I started my practice is that in my corporate world, I was flying around, I was gone all the time. I missed a lot of my children's events.
Mm.
When I started my practice, I was able to go to my son's football games on Thursday afternoon.
Hmm.
Now that meant I worked Thursday night, but I had that flexibility, whereas in the corporate world, I didn't have that flexibility.
Yeah.
The issue, I'll just explain this. When people start their business, they build it by default. They get an idea, they get a service, product, they try a little this, they try a little bit of that. And that default process, a lot of times it'll generate some revenue and it takes some hustle to make that happen, right? It doesn't happen just because you didn't work hard. You got to get after it.
Yeah.
But you realize over a period of time that all of those little things that you did are really inefficient. It's like they build the airplane while they're flying,
Mhm.
and that plane isn't very aerodynamic and it caps at some point. At some point, you get enough customers and there's no more hours in the day. You can't take on any more. And I see tons of business owners, tons is not a great word, but they they're doing their invoices late at night. They're
Yeah.
doing their financials. They're responding on quotes on Saturday. They're working at night. They're working on weekends. They're working, and basically the business has consumed them.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you build a business by default. My goal, understand how to build a business by design so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, wow. And I think there's a different I think there's parts of our businesses that we probably love so much. Like, I mean, if we look at music, I mean, if you're late at night, playing a riff and practicing or something like that, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But there are also parts of your business that are not super fun that you have to do as well. Now, I'm wondering, is that kind of what you're saying? Like, can we maybe focus more on the things that actually light us up in our businesses and less on the things that don't?
Yes, absolutely. And it's about building the design, the team, the system around you that takes care of the stuff that doesn't light you up.
Hmm.
So that you can focus on, and usually the things that light you up are your one of a kind you things.
Yeah.
They're the things that only you can do. You're the only one that can think those rhythms, that material. And that's where you need to spend your time. And so all those other things that can be done by other people, we want other people to do them. But we have to build a business that serves them, that makes
Yeah.
enough money to pay them so that you can do your thing.
That's an excellent way to put it because it is true. The things I think we need to feel some sort of sense of purpose. And so the things that only we can do are the things that we are really excited about. And also you can't actually delegate that to someone else. And if you do, you wouldn't be happy because now you're not doing the things you love anymore.
It is, in fact, it's one of the frustrating things when you're having to do those things that you don't love.
Hmm.
It's not, it's just not a pleasant experience. The tool I teach is called the Freedom Stack, and it's delegate, automate, and elevate. And it's exactly what you said, but that elevate piece is what are you supposed to be working on? How do
Yeah.
we elevate that so that is where your time and energy goes,
Yeah.
not into the delegation, because somebody else can do that, or the automation, because that's another good concept.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was once told that if you procrastinate on something, then chances are that's the thing that you should be delegating. Does that make sense?
In many ways, it does. Um, and as you're looking at it, as you're looking to the like, what should I delegate? Um, we start with the task that you can buy somewhere else, right?
Mm,
You have an hourly wage that if you figure out what your income, what you want your income to be, you get to decide what that is, right?
yeah,
And so let's just say you decide that you want $100 an hour. If you're doing tasks that you could buy for $25 an hour, you're actually costing yourself money. You need to do the work that generates $100 an hour.
yeah.
And that's what happens is you look at it and say, well, man, my real purpose, my real is up here, right? And I'm doing this down here. And that's where the procrastination comes from. And
Wow.
so, yeah, move that off your plate.
I want to make a reference again to music again. So, one of the toughest things about being a musician is that love to play music, and there's a lot of musicians that would love to do it for free, right? We love doing it so much, right? And so I think that maybe that aligns a little bit to some people in how they see their business, and especially the thing that they love to do in their business, right? And so when they say they want to make $100 an hour, that's like it's weird because they feel like they're almost even cheating a bit because they're getting paid all this money for something that they would do for free. Is that do you think that that happens in regular businesses as well?
I think it does. But a couple things you have to understand. When you do it for free, people don't appreciate it as much.
Hmm.
They don't value it as much.
Yeah,
You can't do it for free and you can't do it for cheap. You want to figure out what is that spot in the middle that, you're getting compensated and they're feeling value.
yeah, yeah.
Because coaching for free, and I do that. I do some pro bono coaching, but I do like work with nonprofits and things like that. But the reality is the clients that I work with that really need my services that are going to make a big difference to them, they don't look at it. If I was free, they're like, you're not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think there might be some like sort of deep programming that we're taught to think that work is hard and work is not fun, right? When it is now, that's what you're telling me right now is that it is possible that you can have something that you're passionate about that you would do for free that provides enough value to someone else that you could be paid handsomely for that thing that you would do for free anyway. And isn't that a great place to live?
That is the place to live. That is not a great, that's where you want to be.
Yeah. Wow. Well, okay, so there are some things that don't go as planned on the journey, and I'm wondering, I like to get those out because people really let that hold them back on getting started in the first place, is worrying that they're going to make some mistakes. And I'm wondering, can you share with me some, mistakes that you've made over the years that we can learn from?
Oh, that's a long list. Um, well, let me explain the mistakes curve real quickly because I think this is helpful. Whenever you're learning something new, is where you're going to make some mistakes, right? Because you
Hmm.
don't know it, you don't know how to do it. You can think about back when you learned how to ride a bicycle, or if you ever learned how to drive a manual transmission car. There's a lot of craziness in that early stage, right?
Yep.
But eventually, you learn from your mistakes and you get better and better. And pretty soon, you can drive the car, you can ride the bike, you can snowboard. They all play that place where you have to practice
Yeah.
and you get feedback when you do it wrong. So if you crash the bike, you did it wrong. You gotta get better at it.
Hmm.
So understand that's just part of the process.
Yeah.
So I am a guy that has always enjoyed really big projects. Really, some people, one project for the whole year, they're in heaven. And other people, one that would kill them. That would just be like giving them another hole in the head.
Hmm.
So people need more variety. I'm the guy that likes the deep stuff. And so a lot of times that involves a lot of, and I have a sort of an innovation background as well. So that has a lot of net new learning parts to it. And I'm currently engaged in live virtual events. And live virtual events, I've done in person on stage events, but live virtual events includes all this technology. And then there's the learning to do the marketing and the development, everything else for a new type of service delivery. And there are like 1,000 moving pieces. And none of them, not one of them is like complex or too hard. It's just there's so darn many of them. And so I go through and I forgot to do that. Oop, I forgot to update that text. Oop, I forgot to do that. And so ultimately it's building systems that allow me to remember to take care of all of those little things. But that doesn't happen overnight. So I've made many, many, many mistakes,
And you're still here.
and I'm still here. And I keep plugging along. And I think that the trick is to not get depressed
Yeah.
about not making the progress that you want. So the way I teach is, most of the time we're forward thinking. We're looking like this is the goal, this is where you want to go. And you get up in the morning and it's not any closer. Or maybe you found something and made it even farther. And that's like, the the thing to do is turn around and look behind you and see where you come.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you the distance that you traveled, you're not thinking about that. You're not thinking about measuring that. But when you look back and you're like, well, yeah, I know I still got to, man, I've got a lot done. I'm a lot different today than I was a year ago or 6 months ago or 3 months ago. And that's a place where you can pick up some energy to restart the goal process.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that we not only do we compare ourselves to who we think we want to be in the future, but we also compare ourselves to other people too. And you're only seeing their highlight reels, right? So you're kind of
They
going,
don't
right.
tell you the things, they don't tell you their struggles. Right now, a few of the influencers out there will share some of their struggles and they
Hmm.
teach from that. And I appreciate that. That's one of the things that I try to do as well. But most people are just talking about their highlights.
Yeah. 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 Wow. So let's talk a little bit about the jam room. Like, I mean, you've been working from home for quite a while now. And so how do you stay productive in your home office when there's so many distractions around?
Well, I learned this a while back from Dan Sullivan, who is the strategic coach. He's been coaching longer than I have. At night, we're going to go do a quick little evaluation of what we got accomplished today.
Hmm.
And we're going to identify three things, not 10, not one, but three things that we want to get done tomorrow. And we're going to put those in priority order. And ideally, one of those is a big thing, and a couple of those are some side things. And so that's my focus for the next day. And I actually start that the night before. And what happens is your subconscious mind kind of kicks that around while you're
Yep.
sleeping. You don't know that, but it does, right? And you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, okay, now I know what to do and I'm ready to go. And I've already built the focus, like do the hard thing, the big thing first. And so that's kind of how I keep my focus. And I also know that I have to be careful because I am distracted by shiny objects.
Hmm.
And so I sort of have leaned into this concept of kind of picking my head up from whatever it is that I'm doing and just evaluating, am I still doing the thing that I should be doing?
Yeah.
Now, in addition, I think that there are some rest periods that are there. So it's very easy to just try to work 3, 4, 5, 8 hours in a row. And frankly, for me, that doesn't work anymore. I was a competitive chess player in high school. And so a chess game, I played in the US Chess Championships in 1976. And a chess game would be 4 hours. And so when I was 16 years old, I could concentrate for 4 hours. I got to be honest with you, that is not in the cards for me any
Yeah.
longer, right? I'm happy when I get 90 minutes. And so I really sit there and say, look, I want some 90-minute bursts. I want two 90s and a 60. If I get two 90s and a 60 every day, then I feel pretty good. And that gives me some time to get up and walk around and take the dog for a walk, maybe check something, do a little reading, do a little, that kind of thing. And if I sit too long, my back gets sore. It's just this is the problems with age, right? I'm not talking to anybody in particular. It's just me.
Of course, of course, yeah. Oh, geez. Well, and I think it works on two sides too. It also, for people that have a hard time concentrating. I mean, you've got the opposite thing where you could concentrate for longer than, a lot of people are kind of like 10, 15 minutes and all of a sudden you're on to another task. Like having those bursts is really good to keep you focused for that amount of time too, because you do build a role, right?
Absolutely. So I think I call it the sprint, right? Understand that a 15-minute sprint is really hard to get something significant done.
Mm,
Just not enough time,
hmm.
right? So a half an hour, there's an opportunity to get something done. An hour, there's really a great opportunity to get something done. 90 minutes is complex. So if all you can do is a half an hour, try to get to a half an hour,
Yeah.
right? Just learn to focus, sit on your hands, stay in the game until you have a half an hour. And actually, with practice, it gets easier, right? That's just part of the process.
Yeah.
But when even if you break your tasks down into a half hour batches, you can make a lot of progress in the course of one day. And for me, that would be what 90, 90, and 60. So 6, 7, 8 half-hour sections if I could get that in.
Hmm.
It'll probably be a little bit longer because of the startup function, right? So you work on something for a half an hour and you're deep into it, and then you got to take a break. Well, it takes a little while to get back into that space the next time.
Yeah.
It, it just, it's just hard. That's why interruptions are so difficult. I said to turn off the phone, like half an hour, everybody on this planet can probably give you a half an hour at any one particular point. You say, no, I'm not going to do it now. I can't do it now. I need a half an hour. I got to get this done. Now, sure, are there some emergencies? Yeah. So if the house is on fire, let's go take care of it. Or if somebody got hurt, then let's go take care of it. But there really aren't that many that kind of emergencies. And so learning to not get distracted by shiny objects, right? Turn everything else off. Don't respond. Turn your phone upside down, which I do because otherwise it lights up when a call comes in.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so those are, this is how do I stay focused working from home?
Yeah. And you do have to find some tools to help you with that because especially if you work on a computer, that is where all those distractions are, well, a lot of those distractions are coming from. So, if you've got those things binging in the corner, you got to figure out a way to block those, right?
Yes, turn off all the notifications,
Hmm.
all of them for that period of time.
Yeah.
Uh, and I've just discovered I've been doing this, 16 years running my own practice. I worked in hotel rooms when I was flying around, when I was in corporate. The same concept. I've just discovered that I can turn those off, and then I then decide when I want to go look at it. It's not like I'm ignoring everybody. I'm going to go look at my texts when I choose. I'm going to go look at
Yeah.
my emails when I choose. I'm not a once a day guy either. I'm probably, 2 or 3, 4 times a day. Because I don't want to go to the end of the day. But, I get to decide when I do that.
Yeah. So now I think that when a lot of people get started in their business, especially if it's a very small one, they start as this solopreneur, right? So they're wearing all the hats, they're doing all the things, right? And maybe they love it all, maybe they love the control of it all, maybe things are going good. But as you mentioned, at some point that I mean, something's going to happen in your life at some point that's going to take your time. And if you've scaled to a point where you're working a lot of hours, now you've got a problem. I mean, what if you have to take a week off, right? And
Yeah,
you're
you've got no
this
capacity.
solopreneur. Yeah. So, um, getting other people to help you is one thing, but then there's also I think there's some real stress in doing that for a lot of people of, trusting someone else to do something for you. And how do you think a person who has that stress would respond? Like what do you think that they should know to help them to let go of that piece?
So you are speaking the truth here because that's a big problem for a lot of people. The control, will they do it right, et cetera, et cetera. So um, in the model where you're trying to build some additional capacity with outside resources, whether it's 1099s or service providers or whatever, um, it's not about whether they can do it like you. It's about
Mhm.
whether they can do it well enough so that you can elevate your time to the higher value priorities. So that's one of the first things you have to look at. You're not duplicating you because that's just not possible.
Okay.
The second thing is we want to be very clear on what are the tasks and the duties. So I look at three things that you have to evaluate when you're bringing somebody on board. Do they have the knowledge to do what you're asking them to do? Do they have the experience to do what you're asking them to do? And do they have the behaviors to actually do it when they said they were going to do it? And ultimately, those behaviors, those attitudes, those are actually the most important of the bunch. So what are the attitudes that you need? And then how do I how do I interview for those attitudes? Because we interview for skills and experience all the time, and people get hired for skills and experience and get fired for attitude all the time.
Yeah.
So really, what we want to do is how do we interview effectively for that? And then now they come on board. How do we measure their performance? Right? What kind of performance do I need so that I can check and see early whether it's working or it's not? No such thing as perfection. You're never going to hire the right person every time the first time. That's not the case. But the idea is to hire slow and fire fast.
Yeah.
If they're not doing it, then you got to move them on. So you have to have a system to measure their performance. Are they on time? Do they doing what they knew? What's the quality of their work? Depending on what you're trying to achieve. When you have a system and a model and a process, then that fear trust issue I won't say it ever goes away, but it gets reduced. It
Yeah.
gets compressed to something that becomes manageable.
Yep, I think that's right. Yeah, and I think the first part of it is probably the most important because they're not going to do it like you do it, or maybe they will, but that would be one in a million, right? They're,
Yeah.
everybody's unique, and the way that you do it, and maybe that might be something that's connected to the last piece that you said, what about the process? Because if you know how you do it, then you know how to check if they're doing it the way that you do it. But if they're doing it differently, then how do you check to make sure that they're doing it right if they're not doing it right, quote unquote, right?
Well, at the end of the day, it's the output, right? That's what we're going to measure.
Hmm.
And again, do they do it like you? Can they do it as well as you? No, but is the output that they deliver good enough?
Yeah.
Is it good enough that allows you to elevate? Because that's what you're really trying to do. Otherwise, you get sucked into those low value tasks and now you're trapped.
Yeah.
But you want to elevate. You want to elevate to where you get to work on your musical skills.
Yeah.
In the doctor world, for example, my first client was a doctor. I had no expectation of that, but um, the doctor is the technician, right? If he doesn't go into surgery, he doesn't make any money. So he has to do that. He can't get somebody else to do that part,
Yeah.
right? But what we want to do is make it as easy as possible for him to get into the surgery, get into the operating room as often and as frequently as he wants to, because that's where he generates the revenue. And so the management of the office, we don't want that on the doctor's shoulders. If he has some ideas or concepts on how to be a better doctor, yeah, that we want him that on there, and we need him being the technician. So we need to decide what we can delegate and what we can automate.
Yeah.
And you, as a musician, you can't automate your musical prowess.
No. Yeah. Well, but then I'll just throw this out there is that you could get surprised. And the person who is not doing it your way could actually be more productive and actually bringing more to the business than you would have thought that they would, right? Because they were just doing it differently and they may have something that you never thought of, right?
And that is high level success.
Yeah.
Hiring people that are actually better than you,
Yeah.
right? Hiring people that are better than you. You're the leader, you're the organizer, you're the orchestra conductor, and bringing in the right talent, like they might be way better at IT than you, or way better at marketing, or way better. It's okay. Let them be better.
Yeah. What is the difference between marketing and sales, in your opinion?
Um, well, I really see that as like two halves of the same whole.
Mhm.
Um, the better your marketing, the easier your sales. But marketing includes the model I always follow was the AIDA acronym: awareness, interest, desire, and action. That's what marketing is trying to do. And we're trying to identify the ideal target, and we're trying to get them interested and to get them to want what we have, to understand the value that we provide, and then to take action towards us to introduce themselves, fill out a form, whatever, something of that sort, right? And then the sales part is just making sure that we answer all of their questions so that they are fully satisfied in making the investment with whatever your product or your service is.
Yeah.
And at some point, helping them move forward. Because if you know that your product or your service is going to move them, then you kind of owe it to them to help them get to that space.
Yeah. Now, like when you think about like, so the marketing is really the qualifying step. It's bringing people in the door that already want what you want, but it's also a disqualifying step, and I think that's uncomfortable for a lot of people too, right? They don't want to say that they can't help you, right? I mean, how often do I hear people say, "Oh, I can help anybody," right? Have you heard
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Oh, many, many times. Yes. And so, yes, you can. But here's the thing. There are people out there that benefit more from your services and products than others.
Hmm.
Those are the people that need you the most. Those are the people that you want to market to. And so every time you bring somebody on that isn't that level, then somebody that is that level isn't getting your help,
Yeah.
isn't getting the service that you can provide. And when it comes to marketing, we're going to market to that person that gets it the most. Now, if somebody comes knocking on the door and says, I need your help, I'm not saying turn them away. I mean, you could help them, but you're not marketing to them. right?
Yeah.
That's not your ideal client. And when it comes to your capacity, who's in charge of managing your capacity? You are. And so you got to decide whether or not you have the capacity to handle that, or do you have somebody that you can refer them to?
Yeah. Well, that's just it. There's only one you. And so really saying yes to one client is saying no to everybody else, right?
Well, if you think it, yes, but there are again, there's a circular pile, a group, I'm not using the right words here, of customers, prospects that could benefit from your services.
Yes.
But yes, every time you say yes, that you're saying no somewhere else, right? There's only so much space on your calendar.
Hmm.
And as you build your practice, there's going to be less and less space. And so you have to allocate your time in a tighter and more effective window as you expand.
Yeah. And just like you said earlier, where the mistakes that you make are usually in the very beginning because you're learning, right? And so
Yeah.
if you've sort of figured out who it is you serve and what they have in common, and you start to get really good at handling that specific scenario, you make less mistakes. You deliver a higher quality product. Whereas if you're constantly taking on different types of things, sure, you could do it, but you're like starting over every time in a way too, aren't you?
Right. It's hard to be an expert at everything,
Hmm.
right? If you're going to be an expert, be that top level 9 or 10 level on a scale of 1 to 10 resource, because that level actually commands the market.
Yeah.
Anything under a 9 or a 10, there's some gaps, and you end up responding to the market as opposed to telling the market what works. But there's a lot of work and energy and effort to become a 9 or a 10 at something.
Yeah. Now, and then just to wrap up that part, like so I don't like no's. I've learned to accept them, right? However, I think what you're saying now is that if you get really good at the marketing portion and you're having sales calls with people that are most likely to be your target market, then you're going to have less of those no's, aren't you?
Absolutely. You're pre-qualifying them. So before they jump in, they look at your material and they say, "Yeah, this guy's talking about me.
Mm,
I've got that problem. This guy can help me with that problem. I got to talk to this guy."
yeah.
That guy's pretty ready to move in, right? And take you on, and your job is to serve him,
Yep.
as opposed to somebody that's kicking the tires.
Yep.
Because who knows? I don't want to spend a lot of time with tire kickers. There's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, there is. There is for sure. So it's time for your guest solo. Tell me what's exciting in your business.
So for me, exciting is this live virtual event space. So I spent I grew up in Southern California. I just moved here to the Northwest in Washington, Vancouver, Washington, 5 years ago. And it was a tough transition because in 2020, not only did we have this big pandemic thing, I
Mm,
also went through a divorce and I also had heart surgery. And so it was a tough, tough year. And I kind of took some time off and sort of restarted. And one of the things coming out of the pandemic that I realized is that, and we're seeing it today, that this concept that it's less risky to work for somebody else isn't
huh,
really true
mm,
anymore, right?
nope.
Because then they get to decide whether you get a paycheck and they get to decide whether you get health care. And, I don't think that's the right thing.
Mm-mm.
And so I think more people need to take control and understand their business. But most people are an inch wide and a mile deep, and they don't have the hat, the broadness of the hat, right, that you need. You don't need to be a mile deep in every business enterprise. Like if you don't have, I am not a mile deep in accounting or finance. That's not my style. But I know enough to understand what I need and where I'm at, where I'm going. That's the level that you have to figure out where you're at. And then I can get a resource to come in and help me with bookkeeping and accounting and finance. And so I started doing these live virtual events. And what's really cool, before the pandemic, I was using Zoom, but a lot of the world really needed to be educated on how to use Zoom.
Yeah.
But coming out of the pandemic, everybody knows how to use Zoom.
Hmm.
And so we realized that you can now deliver a virtual event that is very, very similar to a live on stage event without leaving my dining room. You see my living room right behind me here. Dining room is my office. And I have now there's a certain bit of equipment, but it's not a lot, right? So I've got 2 monitors, I've got a teleprompter, and I got a television, which is actually acting as a really big monitor, and a really nice audio microphone, right? My desk goes up and down if I want to stand or not. And that's it. And now I can deliver virtual events to the world and I can help people understand what it takes to move from being employed to starting and running their own business, their own practice. And ultimately, help them understand how to move from that hustle culture because hustle culture is absolutely necessary if you're going to start running a business. You don't have a choice. You got to get after it. But there's a point where it caps. And that's where it gets really frustrating for a lot of people. Like, I just don't know how to get out of. And so then it becomes systems and processes and concepts, and that's where I specialize and help you move into that next level space. So live virtual events, I run a webinar once a week. It's called Build It Strong. And it's really, the concept is if your business still requires you to be present, then you built it wrong.
Hmm.
It's not going to get you where you want to go. It's going to give you the results that you got right now. And you might have heard this before. What got you here is not going to get you there. It'll get you what you got now, but it's not going to get you the next step. So I have a webinar that kind of outlines that and why design is so important and valuable. And then what are the steps that you can take on your own, whether you do it with me or not, to start to design your business more effectively. And then I have a 3-day event that if you're interested in some detailed implementation activity, 3-day event that I run once a quarter. The next one is April 23rd to the 25th. Um, and it's essentially 3 days where we go through the whole program, but because we have 3 days, we have a lot more time. And it has an implementation, has a workbook, and has guest speakers and all kinds of other fun stuff. Because you can do that with live virtual events. Live virtual events don't cost the money. Like you could do it from there. You didn't have to make an investment. You got to get your own snacks. That's all you got to do. Your own water, right? And nobody tells you what you have to wear, right? And it doesn't matter. And if you want to eat while you're on camera, it's fine. It's okay. And you have a front row seat, right? Everybody has a front row seat. You're not, sitting 50 rows back. And there's this opportunity for engagement and interaction and breakout rooms and all kinds of fun stuff that really make a difference.
Yeah.
And so that to me is how I can take my um, what I call my zone of genius, and I'm not trying to brag here, but just the things that I do best and deliver it to the world, as opposed to the one-on-one coaching business that I had before, which is very effective, but there's only 10 people I get to work with at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know one thing is for certain is that we are not taught how to run businesses in school. Like, so the
Not at
average
all.
person is
I'm
not
not
going to be
certain
taught
schools.
that.
I'm not certain schools doing the right things these days anymore, anyways.
No, but I think that there's a bit of a transition. I like where you're going because when you start off, you sort of are taught to be an employee, and then you decide that okay, I want my own thing now. I want a little bit more flexibility, and so you basically transition your employee mindset into a business as a solopreneur, where you really just have a job, but now you're working for yourself, so you have that flexibility. And I think what you're saying is that there's another step after that where you can actually start to pull back from that as well. And now you can be a lot more free to do the things that you want to do rather than just having a job where you're your own boss. Is that what
You're
you're
absolutely
doing?
right. Yeah, let's build a business instead of build a job.
Hmm.
Now, again, I think building a job is going to give you a lot more flexibility, but you're still tethered, so to
Yeah.
speak. You can't step back.
Yeah, which is fine for some people. I mean, if that's what you want, because I mean, you can obviously probably do that and, invest your savings and be able to retire eventually and all that stuff, and that's great, right? But what you're talking about is that next level where you can actually now retire, quote unquote. I don't know what that means to some people. I mean, I know some people that are retired and they're having a hard time figuring out what to do with their time. So why not do the things that you love out of your business while you're not having to go into the office? Is that kind of what you're wanting
Well,
to
yeah, so
do?
let's just get to the point where we get to choose,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? You get to
Yeah.
choose, if you're really good at what you do and you like it, then you can dip in and you can do it and you can go deliver.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. So if you get sick or if something happens or a once in a lifetime travel opportunity occurs, you have the ability to lean into that as opposed to being tethered to the desk or the office or wherever that happens to be.
Yeah.
You made a great point. Some people are very happy with just the revenue and the job and consistency. They got good clients and they don't want to do the work to build a business. And that's fine. I support those people. There's millions of them out there on the planet, and we're good for them.
Yeah.
And so my clients, that's not my client. My client's the guy that wants to build a business. He wants to do something different. And often he's got some things he wants to do outside of just this business. So if you have enough money, right now, all of a sudden nonprofits become a target, right? You
Mm.
can do some special stuff. You can do some charity stuff. You can do some serving stuff. There's a whole lot of things you can deliver to the world that the world needs because you've built something that allows you the freedom to do that. And you're not constrained by money, by the cash, because you've built a machine that takes care of that.
Awesome. So if I'm that person and I'm looking to get to that next level and I want to know more about you, is there ways that I can find out more about you to see if you're going to be the guy that's going to help me?
Absolutely. So I have a website, BusinessWhitt, right? It's the word business, my last name, WHITT.com. And on there, you'll see all the things that I have going on.
Mhm.
There's a contact us thing there. If you're interested in either the webinar, and the webinar's free, this is a great way to kind of just test the waters, do a little
Okay.
taste test. That's businesswit.com and then / build it strong. It's just that simple. Everything is businesswit.com. If you want to know more about individual stuff, I have a strategic planning questionnaire. I've got a bunch of tools. Probably just want to visit the website, see what it's like, maybe have a conversation, visit the webinar. I think that's the right process to see if it really fits. And if it does, then you can lean in and take the next step.
Awesome. Yeah, because I think that's important to have a little bit of that because I mean, I do see there's a ton of coaches out there. It seems like that's just blown right up. And how do you know which one's gonna, resonate best with you? And how do you know if it's even real, right?
Well, yes, yes. So I started coaching in 2010,
Hmm.
and it wasn't nearly as big as it is today.
No. Hmm.
And in any business, you're going to have people that perform well and perform less well.
Mm.
I mean, one of my favorite lines is like, what do they call the medical student that graduates last in his class? Doctor,
Doctor, yeah,
right? But that doctor is different than the guy that was at the top of his class. And so
agree.
coaching is the same way. You have that everywhere. Everybody says, I can do it, I will do it, yada, da, da, da. The question is, is that true? Is that accurate? Does it work for you? And I really think that things like webinars and whatnot are the way to kind of get to understand somebody and do they really know what they're talking about? Can they serve you? I totally, believe in doing your due diligence, finding the right thing.
Yeah.
Because that's the discernment that you need to make good decisions.
Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome. Great. Okay, this might be the hardest question. We're going to talk a little bit about music here. So,
Okay.
John, who is your favorite rock star?
Well, um, geez.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, so I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. And so it wasn't a rock star, it was a band. I was a Led Zeppelin guy.
Ah.
And it's funny because their music has stood the test of time. My
Mhm.
kids are Led Zeppelin fans. They didn't grow up with Led Zeppelin. When they discovered Led Zeppelin, they were like, wow, these guys are really good. Um, I like jazz. I'm a Miles Davis fan. I mean, there are a lot of others that are out there too. I don't know the artists as well,
Yeah.
uh, but that's kind of my style.
That's awesome. You're 100% right. So I host a jam night a couple nights a week, and one of them is at a restaurant. And so until 10 o'clock, I'm allowed to have kids in there. And so I've had a few young, like high school bands that have shown up to a jam night to play. And what are they playing? They're playing Led Zeppelin, they're playing
Yeah,
Black Sabbath, they're playing a
yeah.
lot of that old, like classic, heavier rock. And it's just fascinating to me that a 17-year-old today is still aligning with that music the same as a 17-year-old back in the 70s, right?
Right. Black Sabbath was my favorite before Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
So because they were just a little before, but
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
that's
awesome.
that's yeah,
Yeah, good music is good music, right? It just
absolutely. And I can say these days I really like a lot of jazz.
Mhm.
I and there's different genres of jazz, but I like it kind of where it's a little fast paced. I love a saxophone. There are just some things there that are just fun. They're toe tapping and they make for great background music. Now, again, Led Zeppelin doesn't always make great background music,
No.
right? It's not good, not always good thinking about stuff music. Jazz is great for thinking about stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for rocking out with me today, John. This has been a ton of fun.
Tim, I have enjoyed the heck out of it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. To the listeners, make sure you go to workathomerockstar.com for more information, and we'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.